Recently, I'm reading a novel which is based on this country in Paraguay, South America. In South America, there's a country, and of it, the book is I, the Supreme by Augusto Bastos. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'm sure you'll come to know it. This author, Augusto Roa Bastos, he joined the Paraguayan army. This one. He writes, when I left for war, I dreamed of purification and the fire of battles. Instead of glory, he found maimed bodies and destruction, which left him to question why two brother countries, that is Bolivia and Paraguay, were massacring each other. As a consequence, he became a pacifist. He wanted peace. So he portrays the 19th century Paraguayan dictator Jose Gaspar Rodriguez de Franchi. Now again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but the book is good. Yeah. This is the book that I'm reading. There's a cover. You can see the dictator, and it's written, a richly textured, brilliant book, one of the milestones of Latin American novels, written by, says Carlos, the New York Times Book Review, front pages. I read from the back cover, Latin America has seen time and again the rise of uh, dictators, supreme leaders possessed of the dream of absolute power, who sought to impose their mad visions of perfect order on their own peoples. Latin American writers, in turn, have responded with fictional portraits of such figures, and no novel of this genre is as universally esteemed as Augusto Roas Bastos's I, the Supreme, a book that draws on and reimagines the career of the man who was elected supreme dictator for life in Paraguay in 1814. The prodigious meditation not only on history and power but also on the nature of language itself. The New York Times, written by this Michiko Kakutani, Chicago Tribune writes, one of the great fictional portrayals of Latin American dictators, a masterpiece worthy of comparison with Garcia Marquez' The Autumn of the Patriarch. Washington Post World writes, a work of graceful, voluminous genius, an Everest of fiction. And here we have the ISBN number 0-394-75264-3. So here we have the translator's acknowledgements. The translation would not have come into being had it not been for the light offered me by two who know the original languages far better than I, Augusto Roa Bastos and Iris. Grateful thanks are also due to Melagros for much waypointing. It was her edition of El Supremo that provided the text here used. With her kind permission, I've also used many of her notes and her Gaurani lexicon. I also warmly thank Lee Gurner, the editor of I the Supreme, at Alfred A. Knopf, for his enthusiasm, encouragement, and endurance. And finally, this version of the story of the Supreme could not have been put before the reader without the generous help in every sense of Joan, to whom it is dedicated. Brilliantly, the novel begins, or he starts the novel with a passecu, with a pass, with a pasquinade. Well, that is satirical writing in public place. So here it is. This was posted at a public place, on a cathedral rather. Let's just read it. And this shows the depth of hatred for the despot. And here I read, I, the supreme dictator of the republic, order that on the occasion of my death, my corpse be decapitated, my head placed on a pike for 3 days in the Plaza de la Repubblica, to which the people are to be summoned by the sounding of a full peal of bells. All my civil and military servants are to be hanged. Their corpses are to be buried in pastures outside the walls, with neither cross nor mark to commemorate their names. At the end of the aforementioned period, I order that my remains be burned and my ashes thrown into the river. And the book begins with this um, pasquinade, and see how it begins. See, the dictator is asking, "Where was this found?" Nailed to the door of the cathedral, Excellency. So just imagine. I mean, this is how you can't know who's talking and who's talking, who's replying. It's all in one line. So again, let me just read. And this is how the entire book is. So there's a back and forth without knowing who's speaking what if you don't pay attention. So the despot says, "Where was this found?" And he answers, uh, his supporter or the secretary, and nailed it to the door of the cathedral, Excellency. So, so reading through the book, one realizes that, and we all know about it, that the despot and his supporters think no end of themselves, and the ruled are in a miserable existence. God gives them one life, and they, instead of enjoying themselves, they seem to be in a hellish existence under the devil's rule. And any leader, initially everybody is a very good leader till when you read, and any leader can turn rogue, because it is truly said that power corrupts. And of course, the autocrat and his supporters start believing that they are God themselves. The novel is singular, the style is singular. It almost reads like a research paper, a PhD or doctorate thesis, with letters, memoirs, footnotes to prove a point. And the perpetual fear that the common man lives under a despotic rule is very well portrayed here. The author, the way he's written the prose is challenging, of course, very evocative. It demands the full attention of when you're reading. It demands full attention when you read this. And if you're able to plod through these pages, you will you'll really feel rewarded. Uh, you feel as if you've learnt a lot. It is it is not an easy read, I must say. It is it is a literary tour, we can say, that explores the relationship between fiction and history, power and oppression, and the complexities of human psyche. And of course, it is thought provoking. And of course, we have seen or we've read history about these leaders who turn into despots, who become autocratic, and they have absolute unlimited power, and soon they turn into tyrants, and their rule itself is very oppressive. All of that can be felt as you go go through the novel, and it succinctly makes the reader aware that living under a despotic rule is like living in a perpetual fear. So, of course, the author also was exiled because of his anti-establishment views. He was exiled, uh, and it was in exile that he wrote in this novel. So, I, the Supreme is a fictionalized account of the 19th century Paraguayan dictator Jose Gaspar Rodriguez de Francia. I hope I'm pronounced, I don't know. You just check the pronunciation. And he was also known as Dr. Francia. The book's title derives from the fact that Francia referred to himself as El Supremo or the Supreme. So he was a despot. He ruled from 1814 to 1840 and is a unique figure in Latin American history. Uh, so here the writer is fundamentally concerned with the power and the weaknesses of writing itself. Its plot revolves around the dictator's effort to uncover who has been forging his signature on a series of fastened grenades discovered around the capital, and his relationship with his secretary, Patino, to whom he dictates his thoughts and orders, but whom he never fully trusts. So his secretary, remember, the book starts with it. Um, so it is this novel belongs to the genre of dictator novels, and the literary moment of the 1960s and 70s. And there are various threads in this. You will find history, there's novel, I mean, there's a story like that, sociological essay, you can call it, a moral philosophy, even a biographical novel, revolutionary pamphlet, you may call it, or a testimonial documentary, poetic prose, autobiographic confession, ideological debate over So, I mean, there are various angles that you can see the book from. Basically, of course, the basic theme is of power, oppression, and the consequences of authoritarian rule. It's an allegory. It serves as an allegory for the dark chapters of Paraguayan history, and by extension, a commentary on the universality of such struggles. It invites readers to contemplate the effects of absolute power on both those who wield it and those who are subjected to it. So, another thing is that when you go through the text, I mean, go through the novel, you find that it's an exploration of the relationship between fiction and history. I mean, it's like really reading like a historical book, as I mentioned earlier. And then what is very singular or different is that he places Francois as the narrator. So he sort of blurs the lines between fact and fiction and raising questions about the role of literature in shaping our understanding of the past. So this is like a huge, a meta narrative element, the way he's done it. That sort of adds an intriguing layer to the story and invites readers to reflect on the nature of historical accounts. So look at him talking. Funeral orations, pamphlets condemning me to be burned at the stake? Bah, they are daring to parody my supreme decrees now. They imitate my language, my handwriting, trying to infiltrate by way of it to get to me from their layers. Shut my mouth with a voice that thundered against them. Very mean words in effigy. An old trick of tribal witch doctors. Post more guards to watch over those who labor under the delusion that they can replace me once I'm dead. Where is the file of anonymous libels? It's right here, Excellency, by a hand. See, the secretary is talking and it's just here. I mean, there's no, you just, if you just take your eyes off, you don't know what you're actually reading. That's the thing. And then he says, the secretary says, no, those two, he says it's not wholly unlikely that those two scrabblers, Molas and D. Penna, whatever, were the ones who dictated the squib. The joke is altogether in the style of those two infamous partisans out to further the cause of Buenos Aires. If it is their doing, I shall emulate Molas Penna in for life. One of the whatever. So he the Supremo says it could be the work of these two. So the secretary says your worship is more than right. In the light of what your eminence says, even the truth appears to be a lie. So see again, the same line. Now the Supremo is saying, I'm not asking you to flatter me, that if you or whatever. I'm ordering you to seek and find the author of the pasquinade. The law is a bottomless pit, but I expect you to be able to discover a hair in the hole. So then he describes how he has taken care of those prisoners, and the prisoners they may not have light or air. I mean, they are put in cells where it's it's dark. I mean, they can't even see. Nobody can meet them. They can't go out. So he says, the Supremo says, well, they may not have been even a pencil stub, a little end of charcoal. They may not have light or air, but they have a memory. Are they talking about memory? I mean, but they have a memory just like yours. The memory of an archive cockroach 300 million years older than Homo sapiens. The memory of the fish, of the frog, of the parrot that always cleans its beak on the same side, which doesn't mean they're intelligent. Quite the contrary. Can you state categorically that the scalded cat that flees even cold water is possessed of a good memory? No, merely that is a cat and that's afraid. The scalding has penetrated its memory. Memory doesn't recall the fear, it becomes fear itself. Do you know what memory is? The stomach of the soul, someone wrongly called it. Though nobody is ever the first to give things a name, there is nothing but an infinity of repeaters. The only thing ever invented are new errors. The memory of one person alone is useless. So he goes on to say, what sort of memory do they have? They need to remember all the lies they've cranked out with the one aim of defaming me, slandering the government, a memory of cud chewers, a ruminant's memory, ingestive, digestive, repetitive, disfigurative, saliative. They prophesied that they would turn this country into the new Athens, the Areopagus of the science, the letters, the arts of this continent. What they were really out to do with their chimeras was to hand Paraguay over to the highest bid. The Areopagites came within a hair of doing just that. I managed to get rid of them. I picked them off one by one. I put them in their rightful place, etc. The whole thing is that he thinks no end of himself, and which is the way of the world. That is human psyche. Once you're the leader, and once you got a place for yourself, you know that nobody can now dare say anything against. So it's very well done. I will enjoy reading it. A lot to, but of course, I found it very, very onerous. I love books which are an easy read and which one can go through fast. So for me, it was a little tough going through it, but you do learn a lot. But I mean, the books that I like, I like to reread. I mean, I don't think I'm going to reread this. That's for sure. So anyway, happy reading. For once, it's a great book to read.